Hey guys, welcome back. It's been like 3 months, so we're just gonna jump into the video of how I get this whole like skincare look thing, and without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Hey guys, so I've already done my eyes and everything, so I'm just gonna be using some of my Mario Badescu water. This is the Rose facial spray with aloe, herbs, and rose water. This is like it was told to me that it was more like a dewy setting mist, but never have I ever had dewy skin, especially with this, so I think it's just kind of like a refresher kind of thing. So I'm just going to spritz my whole face. And then to further help with the skin, I have a line right here, and I think that I notice when my skin does not have enough barriers underneath, because this will start to crease with almost all foundations. And for a while there, when I was really on my skincare and everything, it was doing a whole lot better. But I'm using my, it'll focus here in a minute. This is the Drunk Elephant C Firma Day Serum. And I just take a pump of this, and it's just kind of runny. And this is just supposed to help like firm and brighten your skin, which is just really good to have as a base anyway. But I like to use the, I think this is by Physicians Formula. This is their Spotlight primer. This is also a dupe for the Backlight primer by Becca, and I just get like a pump or two on the back of my hand. And this is actually, it has like a glow to it. So the point of this is to, when you wear a less than heavy coverage foundation, it will seep through, make it glowier, and just kind of like help in general with making your makeup look a lot fresher and not quite so lifeless. It just adds like a subtle glow underneath, and it's kind of like a champagne-y like rose gold. And this is really good for a lot of different skin tones, because gold looks really good on certain people but not on all, but the rose gold just kind of like marries together and it looks really good on everyone's skin. What I like to use for my foundation, and I'm a little bit self-tanned right now, I don't know if you can really tell, but this is a little bit more olive-y than the rest of me, so I like going in with the IT Cosmetics. This is their Bye Bye foundation, the full coverage moisturizer. It has SPF 50 in it, which is really good if you are out and about. A lot of people suggest putting an SPF on like every day. This says apply liberally 15 minutes before sun exposure. Reapply at least every 2 hours. It says use as a water-resistant sunscreen if swimming or sweating. It just has a lot of things in here that would suggest that you use this as kind of like a sunscreen, but I'm not going to be paying this much money for a sunscreen. I'm just going to go out and buy a sunscreen. I don't really care about makeup when I'm out and about, like going outside and like working out or like going on the water or whatever, just having fun. This is not the thing that I'm going to be bringing, but this is good if you're, say you're on a beach vacation and like y'all are going out and like spending time together, like going around the mall and everything like this. This will help protect your skin. I have light medium. It's darker than my original like skin color normally, and I just take 2 pumps on the back of my hand. This is good. This is more like my summer shade, which is kind of what I've been using it for this whole time. And I typically will go in with, if I want a heavier coverage, you want to use a brush. If you want a lighter coverage, you use a sponge. Now I'll still go over with my sponge, just kind of like blur out some of the little streaks that my totally not clean brush is going to leave. So this is the Morphe & Jaclyn Hill JH03 brush. It's just really compact and condensed, and I like this brush a whole lot, and I will dot this on my forehead, and I'll just start working this in. And a lot of times, if I have time, I will put on my skincare and then do my eyes. But for the sake of this video, I wanted to show you like all the steps, since it is like a skincare only kind of thing. Y'all just ignore my roots. They're there, and they won't be for too much longer. So I just dot as I go, trying to like spread as much product as possible. When you're doing a foundation, you need to make sure that no area is left uncovered, which includes your ears. which sounds so weird, I know, but trust me, especially if you're trying to match your face up with the rest of your body like I am, people are going to notice when half of your face that you haven't blended your foundation on is a totally different color. But you're always going to want to blend down your neck, because that's going to be the telltale sign that your foundation does not match you. And there's a lot of times actually where I will wear a darker foundation than the rest of me. I really love my It Cosmetics CC Cream foundation that we just used. So much so that I will use it even when I'm not tanned. And I will take my Real Technique sponge and make funny noises. Make sure that your concealer is not the same concealer that you use when you are not tan. If you are doing this skincare kind of video, too many times I see girls that take pictures and this part of their whole face is white. It shows up in pictures. It has a horrible flashback when you choose a shade that's a little bit too light. It's happened to me before. I was at a bowling alley and we took like professional pictures. Like somebody had a really nice camera. We had it like stuck way off, and literally 20 feet away all you could see was white under eyes. It was very distracting and very ugly. So what I like to use in conjunction with the light medium is I will use light. This is the Maybelline Fit Me concealer. I will use light, but I'll also use sand, which is the shades 10 and the shades 20. Now both of these together make a pretty good under eye for me. This one being almost a little bit too dark and this one being a little bit too light. You want your under eyes, if you are trying to brighten them, you do want them to be a little bit lighter than the rest of your face, but you don't want them to be like a crazy amount of lighter. Plus it'll throw off the whole look of your makeup if half your face is a totally different color. They have to marry and complement each other. They are not supposed to be glaringly obvious. And I will just kind of blend and dot around that so it's a nice blend of the two colors. And then we're going to cover up the acne spots. Now, if you want a heavier coverage, you can blend this out with a brush. I will use a brush on clients sometimes, especially if they have really dark under eyes. Or I'll use it if I've forgotten my sponge or whatever, if it's just not clean. Or I will use a beauty blender and I will get my mirrors and everything. And what I like to do is I will use the pointier, like the middle to the pointy end of the beauty blender and buff up my nose, and I push up, I don't push down. And I'm just kind of like dabbing and like rotating as I go, because I don't want to sweep off the foundation that we just put on underneath, but I want the coverage to still be there. I don't want to have to keep putting on concealer and all that. And I'm just going to keep buffing, keep buffing. Now for under the eyes, I start on the outer corner and then I work my way in. That way all the concealer doesn't just get pushed to the outer corner and like cheek area. I want it to be mainly in this tear duct area and like semi around my nose, because that's where my dark bags underneath my eyes are most prominent, and I want to get the most out of that concealer that I possibly can. Contour instead. So I was watching a video about, I think it's Kylie Jenner's makeup artist, and he was teaching a couple tricks on how he likes to contour and everything. So I've been contouring like that. It's pretty easy to get muddy because of the palette that I use. Now if you use like better products, you're probably gonna not quite get so muddy and everything. And I think his main thing was using a beauty blender to just stamp it out and just blend and blend and blend and blend. A lot of times I don't have time for that, so I don't do that. So what I like to use for this one is the Ulta Beauty Cream Contour Kit. This one's a lot lighter and you have to go in with a heavier hand with it, just because these shades, they're ashy, but they're also extremely light. Now he suggests doing a fluffier brush. So this is the Luxie 660 Precision Foundation Brush. and it's like a loose-ish powdery brush. Not too loose, it's not like flimsy, but it still is a lot looser than the foundation brush that we used previously. So I will go in with literally all 4 of these shades. So I'll just start with like medium contour 2, kind of move to medium contour, go down to deep contour, and then when I want to start building up, I will dip into the deep contour 2, which are literally like all the shades. I just mix these 3, and then I leave this one for the end. So when I just kind of like pile it on my brush like this, I'm kind of just dipping in, and I will just start buffing and just really diffusing that darker pigment, because it is a contour, but it's like very like a natural kind of. Now if you don't have like any cheekbones at all, this probably is not the greatest technique for you, because you're probably going to get frustrated with how light it is. I have fairly prominent cheekbones, so I don't need too much, which is kind of like his whole method is like kind of like less is more with that technique, because it's very diffused, it's very blended, it looks very like natural. I go a little heavier handed on mine just because I like a little bit of bronzied effect. He has a lot of different products that he uses obviously, but the technique is still the same with a fluffier brush. I don't think he uses anything but fluffy brushes, so it's kind of like a good idea whenever you want something super blended. The more precise you want it, the more precise your brush needs to be, the more compact and the more like harsh. The more blended you want, the fluffier you go with your brushes. Brushes do make a huge difference. I know some people say that they don't, but they're lying. Now I'm taking my Real Technique sponge, it's this big giant thing, and I'm just going to kind of run over those little edges, making sure everything's super blended, still pouncing, not pushing. That was very dramatic. Not pushing, because then we'll start moving around all the foundation and everything, and we want to keep everything in its place. We just want to make sure everything's like super blended. You don't want to go too far down with your contour brush either, because you're going to start looking like your cheekbones like never end, and you're going to look like you have no mouth, and like this area will seem really super short and weird. Okay, so for the all day look and everything, I will use my Laura Mercier translucent powder. This one locks everything in place for a long extended period of time. Now a really good dupe for this is the number 7 translucent powder, but I will say that that powder tends to break down a little bit quicker than this one does, but it is like half the price, so what do you expect? So underneath my eyes, I like to use either a small fluffy brush or a beauty blender, and I'll just put this little triangle underneath, kind of buff it up under, making sure that you're not setting the wrinkles or creases. You can bounce a beauty blender up through those creases and everything just to like even them out. Do not ever layer cream products on top of a powder. It will make your skin look infinitely cakier. And I have a really bad problem around my nose, so I like to really pack in the powder because that's the first place it breaks down. But also because I have so many creases, I really have to work a beauty blender around my nose because it's so like detailed, and the foundation just likes to slide on and off. Now I set the main part of my face, pretty much the only place of my face that gets oily. Now I'll take leftover powder and I'll take a big fluffy brush and I'll brush it all over the rest of my face because it doesn't need that heavy intense powder. If you want your makeup to last like forever and ever, if you're doing your own makeup for say like your own wedding or you're a bridesmaid or whatever, maybe you're just taking pictures and you want to look nice, or maybe your skin is oily and you want it to stay, then you can use a beauty blender and really like pounce that powder in. It's just going to give you a heavier coverage, but if you don't need it, don't do it. This is what I like to do first before I even put on bronzer, because I feel like the bronzer really helps like diffuse any sort of lines or anything. We're all about like that super like natural as much as contour can go. I'm using the IVY Beauty, the Highlight and Contour palette. This is a really good palette, and I just use these two shades for myself. And I will use a stiffer brush. This is by Wet n Wild. It's just like their normal contour brush. And I'll just kind of like tap it in there, and I will definitely tap the excess off. And I will use my mirror and just carve up underneath my cheekbones. And then I'll flip it so that it's going this way versus this way. If that makes any sense? I'm not just using like the edge of it. I use the edge at first, and then I go through and diffuse it with like the main part of the brush. And this I'll kind of like brush up just a little bit up here. To give myself more of a sculpted appearance. And then I'll flick a little bit on the outer part of my temple because I have a wide head. So I want to narrow this part to make myself look like I have an oval shaped head, which is the most ideal like head shape, so to speak. And then I brush very lightly over my nose. And a little bit underneath my lip. And as you can see, it's starting to kind of like bring it all together. This is what, you can do this step after bronzer or before, depending on how heavy-handed you like to get. I like taking this brush, I think it's from Crown, I don't know what kind of brush it is, but it's just kind of like this pointed, fluffier brush, and then picking up a yellow under eye powder. These two, this one's more of just like a nude. This is their Highlight 1 shade and the Highlight 2. You can obviously tell I love this one. So I will pick up these two and maybe a tiny bit of Highlight 3 depending on how tan I am. It's not even picking up on here, but this is actually really peach. So I will go in with Highlight 1 and Highlight 2, which are these yellow shades. And I'll just kind of like fluff it up underneath the eyes. And this adds a little bit of extra coverage if you have really dark under eyes like I do. And this also helps highlight the center of that face. Now some people will go up underneath their contour and all that. I don't want to highlight that. I like the center of my face being right here. I don't want to accentuate any part over here just because I have a big round pumpkin head. So I'm trying to make you look at this part of my face and make it look like it's oblong. Oblong? Oval. Oval. That's what I'm trying to get at. Now when I am a little bit tanner, I like to go in with the bronzer shade from the Butter Bronzer collection from Physicians Formula. This is like their darker bronzer. And I'll just kind of pack it on this fluffy brush. I got this one from my Vanity Planet collection. It's like a brush set. And I just run this all up over where we did all that contour. This helps blend out if you went a little bit heavier handed with your contour. Just make sure that there's no lines anywhere. So for blush, if I'm going to be doing this kind of look, if it's going to be a little bit more like taupey versus like super warm or anything, I usually pick something with a little bit more like a rose undertone versus like super warm or super cool. Rose can kind of go both ways, and it helps with what I like to call the contoured look. It pairs very nicely with this kind of skin. It's not one extreme or the other. Now this is the Bella Pierre, I think it's a mineral blush that has like a little bit of like shimmer to it. So when you do this many like matte products and mattifying whatever, if you want like a little bit more glow to it, you want a little bit more, go in with a mineral blush or something with a tiny bit of sparkle in it. I like using the mineral blush in Desert Rose. I'm trying to read that name. So this is really, you can go heavier with this. So I like to use a fluffier brush. This is also by Crown. This is their BMX 130 pointed blush brush. Oh, excuse me, this is by Moda Pro. I think I always say that. I always think it's Crown, it's not. But I just kind of tap off because it's kind of heavier, and then I pat on. And a brush like this is going to diffuse the color. It's not going to make it super heavy. So this is good for those really, really pigmented blushes or blushes like this. For highlight, I'm going to be using the Anastasia Beverly Hills Amrezy highlight. This is like a super pretty gold, and I'm going to make this really quick because I'm running late to work now. So I'm just going to go ahead. I like to use this small highlighting brush. This is also by the JH, the Jaclyn Hill Morphe collection. And I will just pop this on the top of my cheekbone. I don't want to drag it too far down because no one's cheeks are like halfway down their face. So I want to only touch on the parts that I want super highlighted. So to finish everything off, I'm going to be using my Morphe Continuous Setting Spray. This kind of has a dewy setting mist, so it's going to make everything like melt into the skin and just last super long. So guys, this is the finished look. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you liked it, please give it a big thumbs up, and I'll see y'all next time.